Congressman Self, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
You bet, Sean. Great to be here.
All right, so tell me about this legislation that you've introduced that would ban big soda from being part of food stamps.
Well, frankly, this is part of SNAP. And remember, that's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So the very program that we're talking about, that we're trying to change, is we're trying to get nutritional food into our poorest people in America. That's what this program is for, formerly known as food stamps, now known as SNAP. So this legislation would ban sugary drinks. It's as simple as that. Because on one hand, we subsidize obesity, heart attacks, hypertension through these sugary drinks. And here's the point. This is the number one purchased item under SNAP. Not meat, not vegetables, not potatoes. Sugary drinks is the number one purchased item with SNAP benefits. So at one hand, we're subsidizing these terrible diseases. On the other hand, we're treating them under Medicaid. We're treating the same diseases: diabetes, hypertension, obesity.
So why? Okay, so first of all, let's just define this. So is it like Coke and Pepsi, but not Diet Coke and not Diet Pepsi? Is it Gatorade, but not Zero, or what? What is your definition of a sugary substance? So we're all playing on the same song sheet.
Well, we're kind of talking about carbonated beverages. There are some instances where there will have to be decisions made by the department, by RFK Jr., who is actually on his Make America Healthy Again kick. He actually supports this because this is exactly what he's campaigning on: Make America Healthy Again. So that the actual rules of what would be included, my point is basically carbonated sugary beverages. Now we've got energy drinks. They're all over the map. There's everything you can think of. There's sugary soda. There's energy drinks. As you say, where does diet fit in? So that would be the decisions that the department would then have to write the rules to enforce the law.
Right, but again, I guess part of my concern is that we're leaving this up to the feds to decide, these agencies, as opposed to allowing you, the lawmaker, to be specific on this. I mean, so is it that just the carbonated then, so energy drinks fit in, but like a Gatorade wouldn't? I just want people to understand your legislation specifically. What does it target?
It's targeting drinks that very carefully defined have no nutritional value, and yet they have sugar in them that would cause obesity, diabetes, hypertension. That's the key. So however they fit into this category, that's my point. That's the point of this bill. We want nutrition to be provided through SNAP benefits, not sugary drinks that have no nutritional value. So the key here is nutrition versus sugar.
Okay.
Sodas are a good place to start, but frankly, the rules written by the department would define exactly what fits under it. So this law defines nutrition and sugary drinks.
I guess what I'm trying to get my head around it. So just so you understand, like, I'm sympathetic to your point, but I'm just trying to, I drink, there's a brand called Zevia, right? And it's made with, it's no calories. It's clear. It's not got dyes in it or whatever. And I'm just trying to figure out, so does that is it clearly it's healthier, but I'm not sure anyone would say it's nutritional. And so where's the line between, like, I'm just trying to think, water is obviously not necessarily nutritional, I would argue, but it's healthy for you. So what defines, if we can flip this on its head for a second, what defines a nutritional drink, right? So is Gatorade nutritional because it has electrolytes?
No. Nutrition is meat, potatoes, and vegetables. Let's just define it as that.
Okay, so then what would be a beverage?
These are foods that have protein in them, that have carbohydrates in them, so that you can sustain your body. You can protect your cells. It won't cause you to get fat, obesity. So nutrition is the key to what you're asking me. Those drinks have no nutritional value. I would submit that they fit under this bill. So remember, we're talking about federal benefits here, Sean, to our poorest people. So we have the right, if we're going to spend taxpayer dollars, to provide them food, because this is the poorest of the poor that are on SNAP. And frankly, they're going to use other means. I've been told by the people on the actual committee that they basically use, on the average, 3 ways to pay for their food. SNAP is only one of them. So if they want to purchase sugary drinks or drinks that have no nutritional value, use one of the other 2 ways that they use to purchase their food. But the taxpayer dollars should be providing them nutrition, which is what they need to sustain themselves.
Okay, so outside of like a protein drink, right? There's these drinks that you can either add protein to or pre-made.
Right.
I mean, I want to just be clear. Is it that your position that you should just have water or a protein drink, or in your head, does any other beverage qualify for this?
Well, I don't know, because there's a plethora of beverages out there, and we will have to define it in general terms. But the point again is sugar and nutrition. Those are the 2 criteria. We don't want to have something that's only got sugar, because again, this is the #1 purchased product under SNAP benefits, sugary drinks. And sugar, of course, has some value as a carbohydrate, but we want them to have nutrition, which is meat, potatoes, and vegetables.
So RFK, as you mentioned, seems supportive of this. Have you actually had a conversation with him, and has he expressed his specific support for this legislation?
I have not. We're basically following his media presence, and he does support this, and specifically, he supports this very idea. So I don't think we'll have any problem getting to a determination under the rule of HHS exactly what constitutes a nutrition drink without sugar only.
Okay. Why just, I mean, to your point, these benefits are supposed to be nutritional, right? Supplemental nutritional, right? That's what the program's called. Right. Why limit it to just beverages, and why not say all food purchase has to be to fit this description?
It's a great point, because this is the most purchased item under SNAP benefits, and this is the big one that we want to cut down. You have to start somewhere, and the sugary drinks being the most purchased item would go a long way to stop subsidizing obesity, hypertension, diabetes.
All right. So what was it that made you want to do this, of all people in Congress? Like, what was the impetus? Did you just sort of, you look like a pretty healthy guy. Is this like a personal thing to you? Was it something that constituents came to you and said, hey, the school lunches and the other SNAP benefits that people are used are just like, what was it drove you personally to lead this effort?
It was the discussions on the farm bill, because I've got a lot of farmers in my district. Texas has great agriculture, but the farm bill, known as the farm bill, is basically a lot of SNAP. In fact, the majority of the benefits provided under the farm bill are not to farmers to farm more food. They're to provide SNAP. Now, I understand back at the beginning of the farm bill, you needed to have some program that would get the urban votes. And frankly, farmers are rural. So that's why the food stamp program was added to the farm bill. Well, now SNAP benefits are a majority of the farm bill. And so it's really a food bill, not a farm bill. So I got to looking at that and I said, what in the world? So most of the farm bill, which our farmers need to help produce food in America, if we're going to be self-sufficient, we need to grow more food. Most of the benefits under the farm bill go to SNAP. That's what drove me to say we need to cut out some of this that is not making America healthy. In fact, it's making America obese and diabetic. We need to cut that out so we can get back to the farm bill being actual bill that supports our food supply and doesn't just subsidize obesity.
So when you introduced this bill, what was the reaction of like soda lobbyists?
Oh, well, they're going to push back because they're trying to sell more soda. But what our point here, our job in Congress is to allocate the resources of the nation. When we allocate resources to nutritional assistance to our poorest people, we need to be providing nutrition. It's as simple as that.
If you could, to your point, though, I guess talking about like RFK's agenda and the MAHA agenda, I would assume that like, if we want to go down this path, I get it's number one, But I also go, if our goal, if you talked about diabetes and all these long-term issues that people face health-wise, that then, by the way, we pick up the tab when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. Why not go, if you're going through this effort, look at like ultra-processed food, look at some of the other junk food that's being purchased, and say, hey, let's make this I guess what I'm getting at is, if you're going through this process legislatively, which I know is a tough one, then why not say, let's just make it all one big bill. Let's get the food. Let's get the soda. Let's go at this, try to get people healthy, make sure that SNAP is focused on nutritional stuff, not garbage, instead of maybe doing a two-step where you do soda one day and food the other.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's plenty more to tackle out there. This was the number one purchased item, as I've said, and we were going to start with this. Now, frankly, when I introduced this in the last Congress, we didn't have RFK Jr. at the helm. So I think it's probably going to be a lot more possible this time, because I will tell you, there are people in this Congress that kind of like the way it is. So we'll see how far down the road we get with this small sample before we go big with everything that needs to be tackled. You're absolutely right. There's plenty to tackle.
That sort of brought me into my next. When you say other people in Congress that like the way it is that a partisan thing, or is it Republicans equally? There are some Republicans that equally don't mind soda and ultra processed food being part of SNAP.
Sure. No, I'm talking about my own party. There are people that would like it to remain as it is, because remember,
why?
we're trying to pass this bill that I think is too slanted toward sugary drinks and ultra processed food, as opposed to supporting our farmers who are growing our food crops.
But so do you think that they are being influenced by big food or soda lobbyists? Like, why? If the evidence is clear that ultra processed foods are bad for us, which I frankly don't think is a debatable point, then what is their argument to say, yeah, but let the people eat bad stuff?
Well, I'm not going to speak for them, Sean.
But at some point, there's got to be an argument. They come back to you and say, hey, Congressman Self, here's my argument. I mean, I'm not asking you to out names, although I wish you would. But I'm just saying, like, what is the prevailing argument when you go to them and say, would you like to get on my legislation? Why do they say no?
Well, they do mention the food at the soda lobby. So I will leave it at that. I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, but when I talk to them, they do mention the soda lobby.
Okay. And how has support gone for your bill this time around, with obviously a more receptive Secretary of Health and Human Services in Robert Kennedy?
I think we've got some support, but you've got to understand, we have been so taken up with reconciliation, with trying to get the CR through, that we finally got through. Congress has been focused on the bigger issues, frankly. So a lot of this is not getting any traction, not just my bill, other good bills. We just now got the SAVE Act back on the floor this week. So, we have been so consumed with the budget issue through the CR, now the reconciliation, and next looking at the FY26 budget. So lots of bills have not gotten the traction that they need, because we've been so consumed with this very complex budgetary situation we're in.
All right. You mentioned the farmers and the reason why you got into this. How are they reacting to the tariffs? Like, what is it that the farmers and the ranchers that you talk to say about the current issues that President Trump is addressing with tariffs?
Well, you see people that are concerned about the tariffs because they sell their product overseas. And yet you also hear from farmers that say, this is exactly what we needed, because we need support to be able to sell more of our crops. So it depends on your view. And I think eventually the tariffs will prove successful, and we'll see how they play out. But very encouraged at President Trump finally taking on the fact that we've been ripped off for all these years. He's actually doing something about it. The Democrats and Republicans have been talking about this for years. We're finally doing something about it, which is the absolute total difference.
So to me, there's basically three things that the president's trying to address right now. One is open up new markets for farmers or ranchers or service providers, right? They have high tariffs. We don't. He wants them taken down so that we can get access to their market. So our farmers and ranchers can send stuff, our manufacturers can do stuff. Two is I think that he wants to bring in some money to reduce the debt and deficit. And then three is I think he wants to bring manufacturing both home. I don't believe that there's a way that you can do all three at once, right? I mean, that's just, you can't, it's a surgical thing. You've got to kind of be focused on one or another, because if you lower the tariff, it's hard to then make the case without additional tax policy changes that someone will shift their company back to the America. Two is that if you want to reduce the deficit, then you got to get, I mean, you either got to keep the tariff up or down. What do you see right now as the goal of the policy? Is it that market access, deficit reduction, or more onshoring?
I think it's onshoring, but first of all, it's far more complex than what you just laid out, Sean.
Okay.
I'm the chairman of the Europe Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs. We've also got trying to get Europe to take more responsibility for their own defense, which means their GDP needs to come up to closer to our growth. We need to grow our own GDP, and we need to cut government spending in order to cut the debt. You mentioned the debt. This is a very complex, and I think President Trump has a very clear vision of a very complex situation. We all tend to look at these individual issues, tariffs, the reconciliation bill, the defense of Europe, as individual issues, but they're not. It's a very complex situation. Frankly, I think that he wants to onshore jobs, and we're starting to see that happen, 288,000 jobs. In fact, there was a reduction in federal government jobs in that 288,000 last month. So it's already starting to work. We see people starting to talk to other countries, talk to him about the tariffs. So all of this is going to play out over time, because this is a major shock that he's thrown a big rock in the pond. But people will come to grips with what President Trump is trying to do. And frankly, a lot of more of their GDP comes out of the United States, regardless of what the country is. More of their GDP comes out of the United States than we receive from them. So he does have some leverage in the tariffs. But Congress has also got to do its job. We have got to have government spending cuts, and we've got to have pro-growth policies, which includes an extension of the 2017 tax cuts in order to get more growth, as well as cutting federal government spending. Those two working together should juice our economy and our growth. So it's a very complex situation. We're trying to keep tabs on all of it. I leave for Europe on Saturday to talk defense with several nations, to including the EU and NATO commanders.
Congressman, before I let you go, the one other thing is this budget is coming up. The Senate is sending their budget back. I got to be honest with you. I was initially very, very optimistic about cutting some government spending, getting the size of government down. What the Senate sent back to you guys, I'm not very fired up about. Where do you think this is, and where do you think what do you think the outlook is? Like, I mean, I just don't get I was fired up for a while about cutting spending and reducing the size of government, and I get this sense that it's getting watered down and watered down.
I will tell you, President Trump wants to balance the budget. He's been very clear on that recently. Now, he wants to do it very fast, and I don't know if we can do it that fast as the president wants to, but it is wonderful that he has set that vision. Now, to the actual reconciliation bill, which is what you're referring to, we set a very high bar in terms of spending cuts, 1.5 trillion to 2 trillion. The Senate sent back to us like 4 billion. That's 1.5 trillion, which is 1,500 billion against 4 billion.
You're right.
The gulf is just wide.
Yeah, I know. But that's my point, is I got fired up by what you guys did. I was excited. I'm like, yes, let's cut some spending. And then the Senate sends back a pittance. And it's like, well, we'll put a little less cream in our coffee or something. Like, I get it. And this is like a kabuki dance where you guys are going to give two numbers in the ultimate, budget resolution. But I guess my question is there a fight in the House among you and your colleagues to fight for additional spending? Because it seems like the Senate is saying we can do a little here, but that's probably as much as we can do.
The answer to your question is absolutely. Now, the question is how we go about that fight. Do we pass this and then we fight on the committee level for cuts per committee? Or do we not pass this and we actually go and say, Senate, you have got to come up some. But yes, absolutely, there is discussion about how to get to more spending cuts. Because $4 billion, let's put this in perspective, $4 billion is probably less than 1 day's worth of borrowing today. Less than 1 day's worth of borrowing today. That's not enough. If we're going to handle the deficit and the debt, we must have more spending cuts, an extension of the tax, more spending on government, more cuts on government spending, and extend the tax cuts to work together.
Okay. Congressman Self, I appreciate you being with us and sharing what you guys are doing to get us healthy again and hopefully to get the budget down. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
You bet. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.